Madison with Artistic Painting Studio, and I'm excited to be hosting this show on Hometalk, which is the largest DIY for home and garden. And if you are watching the premiere, I will be here live with you to answer all your questions, so please feel free to ask. Okay, let's get started. Okay, we are going to be working on a canvas and doing basically a mixed media project. We are starting with my brand texture medium under Artsyville Embellishments. Texture medium is just a wonderful product to roll through. Okay, so we designed it to go with the rollers. My canvas is black, and believe me, you do not need to paint this black first. I did this on purpose so that you guys can see the application and the technique. So it's just so that you can see everything going. Because if I left this canvas white and I was putting on white texture medium, you wouldn't see anything, okay? So let's get started with some fun here. So like I said, if you don't have a trowel, or you're just not really comfortable using a trowel, you can use even a chip brush. Okay, I'm gonna have to hold my canvas with this because we only have it on some clips up here, but you can just brush this onto the surface, and this is actually probably gonna be a little bit easier technique because we're gonna be able to eliminate seeing those frame lines, okay? And it doesn't matter if we can see some texture here from the brush, okay? It's gonna kind of leave what I call a strié effect, but that's okay, so don't worry about it. Okay, so I've got it all on the surface, and I'm just going to come back, and I used my trowel just because it was faster for me, but you can definitely just put this on with a chip brush, and even coming back and smoothing out with the chip brush I think is a great idea, because you're going to, like I said, eliminate those marks from the frame telegraphing through. And that's only one of the issues of going onto a canvas. So if you did this on, they even have what they're called canvas boards, so they're not stretch canvas, but they're on a hard canvas. That would be maybe a little bit easier, or you could also do it on your canvas and stretch it after you're done and put it on a frame. Okay, so we're gonna have highs and lows. There's definitely gonna be areas that are gonna be thicker and thinner, and that's okay because we're human and we can't get this on here perfect. So once we have that on there, we are now going to grab what is called the tiger roller. And this is a wonderful pattern to use that actually creates a really cool tiger print. We're going to use it a little bit more organic this time, and we're not going to just roll it straight up and down. We're going to roll it more random so it looks leafy instead of it looks like a tiger. Only thing I would suggest is make sure that that roller head is spinning well before you get started. And then I'm just going to roll through the canvas, and I'm going to go at different angles, and I'm going to overlap I'm going to come in and fill in some of those areas. Okay, so once we've got that on there, and that's really cool right there, okay? The one thing that I like to do, and you can decide if you want to do this or not, you could leave it peaked up like this, and you can see in the camera that it's peaking up the edges really high, and that just depends on how thick it is. So where it's thinner over here, it's not peaked as much, but where it was thicker, it's going to peak higher. So if this next technique is hard to do, then you can definitely just leave the canvas like this and sand it when it's dry. You can sand off those high marks. Or you can try this technique where you come in, and I'm using my trowel. I'm going to use it very lightly. So just gently pulling the edges of those highs down. And you have to be really careful. You got to make sure the edge of the trowel is clean. And it's just going to prevent you from having to do too much sanding. And again, kind of makes everything look real organic. So it just kind of gives you a really cool leaf look. Now, if you tried it with the trowel and let's say you just push too hard and you eliminated pattern, it is just as easy as grabbing your roller again, and you can roll right back through a section if you felt you eliminated something. So I think that looks great. We are going to let this dry, and then we're going to come back and continue to add some layers. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, the texture medium has completely dried, and just a quick reminder, the only reason there's black in the background is I put that there so you could see the technique when I'm showing you how to use the roller. So please don't think you need to do that first, okay? But the texture medium has dried, and around here we don't sand indoors, so we took this outside and we gave it a quick sand with some good old 150 sandpaper, okay? And really all I did was take off the highs, okay? So it's still smooth to the touch, but you haven't lost your texture. And then, hey, don't forget, make sure you hit your subscribe button, and if you want a list of the products I'm using, there is a button to click for that as well. Okay, so the next step is we're gonna almost make it look like we're gonna make this disappear, but we're gonna paint it with Bodega Black. And you can use basically any black paint. This is a primer paint and just makes my job much easier. So at this point, that's all we're gonna do is paint the entire canvas black. And you will still see the texture. So all this texture is our background interest to give some kind of pattern and design on every inch of the canvas as we come through and start doing our layering. So we're just gonna paint it black. And don't forget, ask questions. I will be watching along with you and answering you in the comments. So if you're watching the premiere, I'll be right with you. Okay, we have our first coat on, and if you find once this dries that you feel it needs a second coat, you can just throw on a second coat really quickly and also do all of your outside edges of the framed canvas. You can see the wonderful texture there still from the tiger roller. We're going to let this dry and then we'll start layering our stencils. Okay, we're back and we're going to start the stenciling part of this project, so we get to the really fun stuff. We're going to be doing the art of stenciling, and I am using a Modern Masters metallic paint. This is the silver. And to load your brush, you just want to pick up a little bit of paint. I've poured it out onto, this is like a serving tray, and I've covered it with press and seal. And so load some paint onto your brush, and then you're going to go over to the paper towel, and this should seem almost ridiculous that you're really taking almost everything off, and you're creating what's called a dry brush. So once you come up to your stencil, you are just going to lightly go over the design. And we don't have to like fill in the hole completely. We're just trying to create layered designs on here. So we're going to have some that are going to be looking like they're in the background, some in the foreground. We're going to play between different metallic colors and just layer things. So this is going to be one that's going to be more in the background. So I'm going to try to keep a really light hand, but you can see how far the paint's actually taking me. And I'm just doing a swirling motion just to go over the stencil pretty quickly. Okay, once we have one of the patterns done, then I'm going to remove the stencil. Something was on the back of that, okay. And we can layer. So I'm just positioning these pretty much anywhere I want, layering the pattern. And I do have a little bit of spray adhesive on the back of the stencil, so it's helping it to stay in position. So we can even stay with the same metallic, or I can even change to, I've got pewter here, where we can layer even in 2 different colors. So same thing, we're going to load our brush, and then offload it. And then because I'm going to bring this one on top, I'm going to try to make any of the design that's peeking through disappear. So it'll look like this one's over the top of the other one. And that's why I was starting off with a light touch, so I could easily make it disappear. Okay, then once you have this on here, you're going to peek underneath and check and make sure you've got the contrast you want. Oh, I got something stuck to the back of this one. And I think I'm going to build this one out a little stronger up here on top so it pops off of the other one. So maybe we're going to mix a little bit of silver in with the pewter, okay? And kind of come back and highlight to get my contrast. Okay, so we've got a couple of them started here. So I'm going to move over and position another one. And just make sure you're staying straight. I know my canvas is hung straight, so if you don't have a really good eye for making sure things are straight, then definitely go grab a level and make sure you're staying straight on all this. It'll make a big difference. I'm going to switch it this time and go for pewter in the background. And remember, every time you load your brush, you have to offload it. Fun to watch this build. Okay, let's see. I think we'll do one down here. And it is one of those things where you're just going to kind of eyeball. Okay, there's no rhyme or reason. I'm using a couple different stencils, so I'm just starting with the first one, and then I'm going to layer in a couple of other stencils as well. Now I have switched colors. I've gone back to the silver over the pewter. The opposite is what I did on the other half of the canvas. And also remember that if you're watching the premiere, I'm going to be watching right along with you. So just ask your questions and I will answer in the comments. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you'll never miss another Home Talk video. And also, there is a button for a list of all the products and tools being used. Oh my gosh, that silver is such a beautiful color. Okay, we're gonna go grab another stencil and continue with us. Okay, I've grabbed another stencil design and we're gonna do a technique called embossing. So I've already mixed up some product, which is gel medium, which is a clear gel. Okay, it's thick. And I've added white and silver glitter already to it. So we're gonna use a different tool to actually apply this over the stencil. Oh, first, also, I put Stick It spray adhesive on the back. Very important. You want every element of that design to stay in place while you're doing any kind of embossing technique. So this is all mixed up. We got this beautiful gel medium that's all glittery, okay? There was a bunch of silver and white glitter in there. And then we're just gonna take the gel medium out of there, and the color shaper tool just glides it over those openings. So this goes really easy. Now, once you mix up some kind of a mixture like this, you want to make sure that you allow it to completely dry so that you can see exactly what it's going to look like when it dries. And don't force it dry because you'll haze it. So always allow a gel medium to dry on its own. You can also put the medium on like the areas of the mylar that are uncut so that you can glide it around easy as well. And I'm always trying to go in towards the stencil so that you don't force any of the product underneath. Did I tell you this is called the color shaper? We already had a conversation about this a second ago, but the tool's called the color shaper, and it's great for doing anything that's a real soft medium, and also for embossing any kind of glass beads. It works great. So you don't have to have all the openings perfectly covered, okay? And then all I'm gonna do is gonna come back lightly and try to just make sure any of those marks from the edge of the tool aren't too high, and to soften them out. And then I try to release the tape first so that we can pop the stencil right off, because if it has this spray adhesive on the back, it's sticking. And I'm going to see if Tyler can get in really, really close and give you a look at this, because that's exactly what it's going to look like when it dries. So we'll definitely be giving you a picture of this after it dries, because the gel medium makes everything look white to start with, but that's going to dry clear where all you're going to see is your white and silver glitter. So we're going to add a few more of these to the canvas. Just partials, okay? I just want a little bit peeking here and there. And I can also even reuse what's left on the stencil and move that into the openings. And you can see I'm not worried about it being perfect. You can still see some of the black canvas coming through those openings, and that's fine, okay? Now, where it's peaked up at the top of the canvas, I'll most likely just let that dry and then sand those off. Okay, and I think we just have to move around here, switch sides. So I'm very fortunate that I have got my son, Tyler, behind the camera. This is a rare opportunity for me to even have him in town with me. So remember, if you have any questions, please just ask anything. I'm going to be watching along with you during the premiere. So I'll answer all of your questions in the comments. Don't forget, you want to always hit that subscribe button. Let's see if I can spit that out today. That way you don't miss any of my upcoming videos here on Hometalk. Okay, now I'm going to critique my own work here. I have an even number of application going here, so I am going to do one more just because I've got to get this way off balance for me, because that is just the way I do things. So we're going to get one more partial on here. I just got to determine where I want it. Sometimes that's half the battle, is just determining where you want to put the stencil design. So a couple of things you can do. If you don't feel like you've just got the eye, that you can just throw these on here and figure it out as you go. You can stencil all of them out on paper and cut them out, not perfectly, but cut them out so you have some templates to put onto the canvas, and then you can walk back away from everything and take a look at it from a distance and see if you like the positioning before you actually apply that design in that location. And I know that really does help, and sometimes it's even nice to have a couple of stencils so you can even lay those out at the same time. When you're embossing like this, you will have to clean this off after about 4 or 5 repeats, because sometimes it starts to get built up on the top and can actually go to the back, especially when we're going over the edge of the canvas. Okay, it's kind of like sneaking through. And then the other thing I like to do is just put the stencils up on some packing paper, any kind of paper here, and this tool, you can ride it across just like you were embossing it, and you can recapture all of that material. So that way you're not wasting it, nor is it going down your sink either, okay? So that's a great thing there. Okay, so besides this just being a fun project, incorporating texture with the rollers, stencils with different metallic colors, we've embossed designs, we got a mixed media project going here. It's not only great for canvas, but you could also incorporate this on furniture, or if you're really ambitious, you could do a complete wall. So thank you for joining me, and make sure again, subscribe so you'll catch us next time. There is a product list button at the top, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining.